The past few months have been odd, to say the least. It started in March, I think, 2012. I just moved to live with my aunt and I started having these slightly erotic dreams with girls that I don't even know. The first dream, I was lying on the floor, nude, holding some girl I had never met. She said something about me not being able to do something, but I don't remember what. We kissed for a while, and then I woke up before anything else happened. About a month later, I heard whispers, like someone talking to me, but I couldn't understand anything they said. It sounded like a girl, but it was like she was saying multiple words at once. I kept having these romantic, erotic dreams, and they seemed so real. Each time, it was with a new girl, and they always started out so romantic. And it seemed like I could still feel her lingering for minutes after I woke up. Then they started getting more sexual and less romantic. I had dreams where I was sitting with a skinny, pale blonde girl who only spoke French. I hardly speak any French at all, but I spoke to her with such fluency that it was unreal. When I woke up, I still had that lingering feeling. Then in the last month or two, it's kind of gone from dreams to reality. My closets and doors will open themselves, and I've watched it happen. I've closed one, then to find it open again 5 minutes later. Whenever they open, I can sense some presence coming towards me, and I get this strong anxiety. It's like I don't know whether or not I should be afraid of it. I felt it rub and scratch my back, and it's actually given me a couple of scars. It slashed my leg once, leaving a 2-inch cut, and it stabbed me in the neck, arms, and legs before. Every time it touches me, I get an erection, but if I ignore it, it scratches me. For a while, I couldn't do anything about it, but now I can touch it. It's freaky. I can push it away or embrace it or even fight it. When I first found out that I could touch it, I started punching it every time I found it. But within the last couple of weeks, it's been waiting until I lay down. I felt it play with me, whether it gropes me, caresses my abs, arms, eyes, and neck, or just brushes my hair out of my face. Sometimes it just stands next to my bed and I get this feeling like I'm being watched. Just within the last 4 or 5 days, it started to lay down next to me. At first it scared me, but now it's kind of nice. Sometimes it'll press its head against mine, and sometimes I kiss it. I've spooned with it once so far, but whenever it lays down with me, I always get an erection and it tries to get in my pants. I don't let it do anything too sexual or violent. Whenever it tries to cut me or grope me, I push it away. I always get this weird feeling of love and lust when it's around, and always has just a tiny bit of dread. I'm not a Christian, but I'm agnostic, and I do pray when I feel the need to. Whenever I do, it disappears. Last night, she was really active. She was constantly trying to take my pants off, and she kept trying to get me closer when I pushed her away. I could even see her shadow walking around sometimes. And it would walk around my house and eventually come back to me. I've only seen her shadow 3 times, and she was moving fast. Faster than I could ever run. Then I just got this urge to put my hand out. I pulled away and I think she got mad. Can they get mad? Because I got this really intense feeling of despair and hate, and I got this really sharp pain on my cheek and my ear. She tried to embrace me, but I pushed her away. I prayed that she was gone. I felt kind of bad, to be honest. I've been doing some research on succubi, and I read a lot of times it starts off with dreams and kind of progresses more and more. Eventually, you can see them like you would see anyone else. But I never read about seeing their shadows. I wouldn't be so worried about her, but I've read that there's these little things called Doblado Succubi, which are like the mother of all succubi, that if you let them have sex with you, they'll consume your soul. I'm not sure if that's true, but if it is, how can I tell if she's one? I'm not really the occult type of guy, but I'm not really ignorant to that stuff either. I'm pretty sure it's not a ghost since I've moved 4 times in the last 6 months and it's followed me each time. When I'm alone, sometimes I can feel her touching me or other stuff. Right now, I can feel her touching my shoulders and my neck. But she feels a lot fainter since last night. Do they get weaker in the day? Or when you pray? Can they talk to you telepathically? Sometimes I can kind of hear someone else's thoughts. But I thought I was going crazy. I mean, come on. I feel things touching me and I start hearing voices. What else would I think? I never thought that they might be hers until last night, when I started hearing it say to let her do me. It's so confusing. Any advice would be nice. I'd like to get closer to her, but I kinda like my soul. So if anyone could help me identify if she's an Umbrad, that'd be nice. I don't know if there's any way to communicate, but sometimes I think she can read my mind. I'm not sure if I should be looking for a way to banish her or what. When I meditate, I get close to her, except when I do mantra meditation. Then it's kind of like when I pray. So once again, any info, advice, identification, or anything about succubi really would be nice. Back in 1992, when my daughter was only about 7 months old, I had a very scary experience that to this day has left me with so many questions. I mentioned in my previous story that I am very sensitive to spirits. I can sense when they are in my home, and also if they are evil or good. From the moment that we moved into the old home we were living in, I knew there was something not right about it. It felt very negative and depressing. I did not like anything about that house, but my boyfriend told me that I felt that way because it was an old house. He never believed any of my paranormal experiences because he had never in his life seen or heard anything. So I just left it at that. One night I was having a very strange dream. In this dream there was nothing but darkness. There was no floor, no ceiling, nothing, just black. All of a sudden I began to see a figure of a man dressed in a white robe, who seemed to be extending his arm downward as if though he was looking down at something or someone in front of him. I can only see from his neck down, and he was facing to the left. At that moment I think to myself that I'm seeing Jesus, and when I turn to see what or who he is looking at, I see the devil on his knees looking up at him. I was very confused and I asked myself in this dream, why would the devil be kneeling in front of Jesus, as if though he were begging for forgiveness? As soon as this thought runs through my head in my dream, the devil, or whatever it was, turns quickly to look at me and smiles. It was a very evil smile. Then at that moment, I woke up to the most horrifying scream I have ever heard my baby make. I was laying on my right side, and as soon as I woke up to her scream, I felt a very cold gush of air run by my left ear so hard and so fast that I knew there was something in my room. The window was closed as it was winter, so it couldn't have been the wind. My daughter was screaming and crying like someone had physically hurt her, so I jumped out of bed, turned on the light, and ran to her crib. She looked almost purple from how hard she was crying. I picked her up, and as soon as she calmed down, I put her down to check the diaper. When I took her pajamas off, I noticed that her socks were soaking wet. I thought that maybe she wet her diaper too much and it was leaking, but then I checked it. It was completely dry. I was confused about it, so I checked her crib to see maybe if I had left a bottle. and that it could have been dripping or something. But there wasn't any bottles, and everything was dry. Her pajamas were also completely dry. It was only her socks that were so wet I could wring them out. A lot of water dripped out of them. Her feet were so wrinkly that it seemed like they had been wet for a while. I don't know if my dream had any connection to what happened to my baby, but to this day, I wonder what was in that room that night, and what it wanted with my child. I have always thought that evil things stayed away from babies. My daughter's 23 years old now, and she is much more sensitive than I am. So I don't know if maybe that had something to do with what happened. I have read many stories on this site, hoping to find something similar to explain this, and maybe get an idea as to what happened. But I have not found one yet. I would really like to know what happened that night. Please feel free to comment. When I visited for the first time the Bible college I would be attending in the fall of 2002, I was thrilled to be in such a beautiful place on campus with such history and character. The beginning of my first semester was great. I loved the school, my professor, my new friends. A couple of weeks into the school year, I realized if I wanted to go on a midnight run to Taco Bell and spontaneous road trips to the beach, I needed to get a job. So I started working in the school's dining hall. It was a tedious, somewhat gross job, but I stuck with it. I worked the evening shift, and so that meant cleaning up after dinner and preparing the kitchen for the next morning. The job also entailed taking out all the garbage. This is when I first saw the tunnels. Seeing the dark, spooky tunnels, I knew that the school had a lot more history than what I thought. I asked my manager about the tunnels, and she told me that the school used to be an old tuberculosis hospital. And when the disease was at its height, people in the hospital were dying by the day. To keep the spirits up of the patients, nurses and doctors built tunnels stretching from building to building to wheel corpses to the morgue without them being seen. Having not had any paranormal experience at the school, and not wanting to have any, I refused to take the garbage out through the tunnels. But that didn't matter. The tunnels weren't the only place on campus with history. In fact, I found out that the dorm I was staying in was the actual hospital. Before I found out the school's tragic history, strange things would happen, like loud bangs or creaks in the middle of the night, the feeling of being watched in the basement laundry room, and other odd, uneventful things that I just chalked up to the building being so old. But after I heard about what the school used to be, those strange occurrences seemed to make a lot of sense. I asked some of my friends if they had ever encountered something strange in the dorm, and they had some very interesting stories of the sink taps turning on and off, toilets flushing, and electric toothbrushes being turned on by themselves. Finding all these stories quite fascinating and entertaining, as any good college student would, my friends and I made movies about the troll that haunted our dorm. One day I was leaving the dorm to head to class, and for some reason I went out the main entrance, rather than the back door that I usually went in and out of. The building was a 2-story L-shaped building. The main entrance was on the bottom short part of the L, and it had floor-to-ceiling windows that went up to the 2nd story. In the middle of the glass wall were 2 large glass doors. When I went to push the glass door open, it wouldn't budge. I pushed, I pulled, and it wouldn't move. In between the 2 doors was about a 1/2-inch crack, in which you could see if the deadbolt was secured. It was not. The door wasn't locked, and there was obviously no one on the other side holding it closed because it was glass. After about 30 seconds, I saw 2 of my friends coming up the walkway towards the door. I mentioned to them that the door wasn't opening, and they just laughed at my efforts to open it. I'm pretty sure they thought I was just fooling around. Again, I pushed, and pull the door, but it wouldn't budge. When my friends reached the door from the outside, one of them grabbed the handle to the door and it opened with ease. Needless to say, I was dumbfounded. I had no explanation for this strange experience. Also, I never used that entrance again. I was home alone one day in the bathroom, doing, well, you know, girl things, hair, makeup, etc. I started to get this weird feeling like I wasn't alone in my house. Usually, I see glimpses of things moving around every once in a while, but this was different. The lights went off, and I remembered it getting extremely cold. Without warning, something grabbed my throat and was making it unable for me to breathe. As it felt like minutes passed on, which it was only seconds, I fell to the bathroom floor on my knees. I don't know how I did this, but I was able to say why. Whatever held me by the neck let go and I was able to breathe. I looked up to see a dark figure in the shape of a man standing above me. It grabbed me again and knocked me off my knees, and I hit my head against the sink. I remember it saying, "You don't have the right to question me," or "You listen and do as you're told." Here is where I made my second mistake. I tried to get up and run out of the bathroom, but before I could make a step, it grabbed me and made me fall. It grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back. Then what felt like fingernails dug into my arm. This still happens, but not always in the bathroom. If anyone knows why they're able to hurt us, let me know. If anyone has any info on anything, please write. Thank you. This all started when I was only 4 to 5 years old. I used to hear scratching and bumps in my room and would have horrible nightmares, running into my grandparents' room in tears begging them not to make me go back in my room. But of course they didn't believe me. The years went on and every once in a while I'd run into my grandparents again. And again they wouldn't believe me. I'm 13 now, and I feel like I'm at war with something that I can't see, and the worst part is, I'm going through it alone. When I was only 9 years old, I had a nightmare that a shadow was chasing me. I woke up in tears, sobbing on my grandmother's bed, but she told me to go turn on my TV and calm down. Just as I turned to do that, I was mortally terrified to see the shadow figure in front of me. The shadow that was in my nightmare, and I swear to God on my life that this wasn't a human because I was standing, facing thin air. And this thing had no face, yet it was almost nose to nose with me. I scream at the top of my lungs and jump into my parents' bed, sobbing, but they tried to tell me that it was my brother Tate. This was not him. I actually saw my brother walk across the hallway after I screamed, and by then the shadow was gone, and like I said, there was no one in the hallway at all. When I was 10, I tried to stand up to it by telling them that they had no right to treat me this way, and that this was my home now, and either they had to treat me with respect or leave. The next morning, I awoke with 3 scratches on my chest, and these weren't from my nails because they're clipped down to the skin. And the marks were skinny like a cat. And we don't have cats. Also, they were fairly deep and were too short, and the one in the middle was long. After that, things were pretty calm. But I've never felt safe in my home to the point where once, when I went to the basement alone to get laundry, I felt so much like someone was watching me to the point where I ran at full speed up the stairs and sat in my room crying and shaking. Another thing that was strange and unexplained is that I had a long mirror in my room that leaned against the wall behind my door. And the first day I got it, it fell over when I slammed my door, and it shattered right in the middle. Now, I know it could have been a coincidence, but there's something else that no matter what can't be explained. I have a sister named Jade, who died before I was born. And she would have been 19 by now. Anyway, whenever my 4-year-old cousin Amelia comes over, she has an imaginary friend that she plays with, who's her age and is a girl. But that's not weird because, because we've all had one at a young age. But one day I noticed she was talking to someone when she was in my room with me. But she wasn't talking to me. I asked her who she was talking to, and she said her friend. I thought she meant her girl imaginary one named Ella. But when I asked if it was her friend Ella, she said, "No, Ella doesn't play with me a lot anymore. She's too busy." So I asked her what the name of this girl she was playing with was. She said, "This one isn't a girl, it's a boy." I asked her what his name was, and she said his name was Jade. Amelia has no idea about my sister named Jade. My family didn't want her to know about it because how my sister died was sad. I don't know where she got that name from, so I asked her how old he was, and she said that she's Tate's age. Tate was 15 at the time. I asked her if her friend Ella knew Jade, and she said yes, but Ella doesn't like Jade because she thinks he's mean. I decided to show her a picture of my sister Jade when she was a baby that my mother gave me, and I told her about Jade and asked her if her friend Jade knew my sister. She said yes, but he doesn't like her. He's mean to her a lot. I found it strange that she not only had an imaginary friend that she had only talked to when she was in my room, but that she was able to say where he was and what he was doing at certain times. Like, I would be sitting on my bed and I'd ask her, "Where's Jade?" And she'd say something like, "He's sitting on your ceiling fan. Now he's sitting next to you, and he's staring at you." I couldn't help but feel like this friend of hers wasn't very friendly. In my basement at my house, I have an old pink Barbie telephone that's got the large pink phone that sits on the machine when it hangs up. The phone has only 4 different things it's made to say. "Let's go to the mall after school." "I'd like to play in the park on Friday." "Let's have a picnic on Sunday." And "Let's get together for a party." She loves to play with it, but when she uses it, she pretends to call her imaginary friends and talks to them. Now, that's fairly normal, but she was playing with it, with me, and I pressed the call button. And the phone said, "I'd like to play with my sister tomorrow." I've had that phone since I was 2 years old, and I'm 13, and I am positive that is not one of the sentences. I even have a paper that has the sentences on it. I pressed the button again, and it said, "I wish you would call more often." Again, not one of its sentences. When we pressed it again, it would say, "You're my best friend. Let's play a game of hide and seek later. I love being your friend." It's weird, and it worried me that it would talk like that. Just last year, I was in my room and my TV was off. I was playing my guitar when suddenly I heard something whisper in my ear say, "Kayla," in a boy's voice. My name is Kayla. And I was completely alone. I even felt its breath on my neck when it said it. It scared me to where I put my guitar down and sat on my bed shaking. I hope that you guys believe me because no one seems to, and I feel so alone. Schools, I hope you enjoyed these Oregon ghost stories. They were on the longer side. I threw in a short one because my throat was starting to bother me because I'm not 100% just yet. So yeah, I hope you liked them. They were interesting and long, and I really enjoyed narrating them. We're almost, I mean, not almost, but we're getting there to almost being done with state stories. So I think either, I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll see. I'll keep it a secret for after the state stories for my Friday videos. I guess that's all, ghouls. I don't have a secret word. Yes, I do. It's chicken. Because I'm going to make mandarin orange glazed chicken for dinner tonight. So, chicken will be the secret word. So if you say chicken or talk about chicken in the comments, I know that you actually listened to my rambling at the end, during the end slate. But as always, the last video is on the top left, the next video is on the bottom left. My social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.